So, why audible to stable? Yes. And system people one side. That that very highly from the moment I so it's already we are running out of time. Now 10 minutes delayed. And just to introduce myself, I'm P.S. Harish. I'm a professor at the Department of Information Science and Engineering. And this is what my introduction is. And if you want to know about me more, you just go to Google and type P.S. Harish, JSS Science and Technology University. You get uh, what you need, what you not be read, everything you get. Okay. So just go to Google, type my name, P.S. Harish, JSS Science and Technology. So this is about my introduction, and we congratulate the organizers for organizing such a wonderful workshop, especially on the academic rating systems and managing academic accounts. But there is a very interesting word that they have added, which is a hot cake of the day. So that is called as the AI tools, right? So AI tools. So I believe that this workshop is exclusively dedicated to only for the librarians, but I aware that now many of the academicians are also here, right? So to know what exactly the different AI tools that are available and how can we use these AI tools for the best academic activities. And in today's world, I think Professor Guru, so in fact, is my guru also. So Professor Guru was talking more about the different applications and how this AI can be used in different contexts. And now, if you see the trend that is going on, irrespective of any fields or the domains, okay, right? So even it could be from the agriculture, right? So even it could be from the agriculture to the economics to the commerce and to the which is considered to be the very sensitive domain in the present sector called as an health science or anything that is related to health science. Right. So everything or everywhere they are going to make use of a word called artificial intelligence. I think you might have seen many of the complex boards or the big displays, especially in the ortho surgeries and all. So, and or you might have heard in the radio saying that the surgeries are exclusively done using an AI tools, so with a minimal intervention of a human being. So the question arises, see, and health is in one sector where never ever we are going to compromise. Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. Yeah, right. So health is in one domain where never we compromise. Right. So even if you go to, since there are more ladies, even if you go to the Karnataka Silk Industrial Corporation to buy a Mysore silk saree, right? So there also you are, is there any discount? Right. So to buy a Mysore silk saree, right? So why? Because that is a human psychology. But have you done the same thing, especially going to a medical store to buy a paracetamol tablets? Never we do that. Right. So paracetamol tablet, right? So even though it costs you 10 rupees, but we are ready to pay 100 rupees. Why is that? Right. So because it's related to the health. Right. So and this particular word called AI is playing a big role, especially in the field of medicine or in the field of health science. Right. So you can just imagine how this is really playing a big role. Right. So can it be? I mean, in the introduction or in the welcome speech, they that it cannot be a replacement or it cannot be just be an alternate to the human intelligence. Yes, I strongly agree. But definitely in one or the other day, right? So it gives an equal competency, right? So especially for the human intelligence. Right. So that is what actually we need to understand. And coming directly to the topic that we are supposed to discuss in today's today's workshop. Right. So such is which is very interesting. because academic writing skills and managing academic accounts both are very important terminologies. Right, so both are very, very important terminologies, and especially if there are any librarians who are there, right? So who are there in this hall, they cannot imagine the existence of a library without the automation. Agree or disagree? Yeah, right. So in most of the things, you go to NAC accreditation, you go to NBA accreditation, anywhere you go, and even the student comes and asks whether it is automated or not. Nowhere, especially in the very old conventional libraries, right? So people used to sit, right? So they'll write the ledger, right? So they'll write the accession number, right? So they'll write so many things, right? So and they'll issue the book, and again tomorrow yes, whether he has returned the book, right? So these things will happen. But you just imagine the efforts that is needed by the library, right? So to monitor these things, right? So if you just see the fully automated library in today's, best of the best universities, right? So will be managed not more than two people. You take it from me, right? So one will be the main librarian, and there will be another, co-librarian, right? So who are going to play a very crucial role, especially in managing these, what do you say, the visual of or visual of. Now the question arises, especially for the library. Still, I have not touched anything upon the academics. For the library, the question arises. It is library is meant only to issue the books and or to receive the books for the students and the faculty? No, definitely no. Right. So library is something big now. Right. So library is something big. Right. Library cannot be used only to issue the books or just to keep the books and give the books, collect the books, right? So and manage the books. No. Right. So they are supposed to be and each and every aspects of academics, the librarians has to be integrated. In what sense? Right. So in what sense? Right. So because the name itself tells the academic writing skills. Right. So and there is a word called tools. Who is going to maintain that? Right. So if you talk our own university sector, who is going to maintain that tools? Right. So a simple example that can be given is I think everybody knows what is Turnitin. Right. So everybody knows what is Turnitin. Why do we use Turnitin? Everybody knows. Why do we use Turnitin? Right. So but the Turnitin is not managed by a single department. Yes, sir. Turnitin is managed by the library. Right. So how well the library and the librarians are going to manage the Turnitin software? Right. So because they'll be having a centralized, customized features, right? So that they can provide to the end users, right? So they can provide to the end users, right? So that is how the library plays a very, very important role. It's not only with respect to using the Turnitin, right? So it could be of anything. Right, so there are so many tools. Maybe I just go through the slides, you get to know, and you will be in a big question mark. Right, so and many of the tools, right, so which exist, right, so which exist, right, so for the free of cost, or it could be a very minimal charge, right, so or which can be procured at the university level, or at the department level, or at the library level, right, so can do really wonders, right, so can do really wonders. That right. So rather than just directly jumping into the artificial intelligence, I just take 2 or 3 minutes. Maybe this is a very broad word to use called as an artificial intelligence. Right. So called as an artificial intelligence. But before coining this word called artificial intelligence, right? So we need to understand two or three terminologies, right? So which we need to really know how exactly these things happen. So one is called as the learning. Right. So one is called as a learning. Right. So how can I speak for 60 minutes or 90 minutes here? Right. So because Professor Guru was telling in the morning, right. So that all the speakers, they don't, tell that how they are using, but rather they tell their experience. Right. So they'll tell their experience. Right. So if I ask Pushpa madam, right. So can you come out with a mechanism that how, the level of purity can be identified by the water, right? So that we are using every day because she's expertise in that particular area and she does on the water, right? So now it is our duty also, right? So to know each and every tool, right? So that are available, right? So irrespective of the domain, because people are talking something about multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, right? So etc. 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 Right. So we need to get exposed ourselves, right? So we cannot say that I am restricted only to this. So the learning should take place, right? So the learning should take place. How can learning can be done? How can learning takes place? Learning can takes place in many ways. Yes or no? I think people are from computer science, electronics, and communications, right? So they know that how the learning takes place. But I'm not talking anything about the machine learning. I come to that at the later stages. But in generally, how the learning takes place. See, you are sitting for 60 minutes here, right? So you are sitting for 60 minutes here, and the wonderful best out of the best psychology says the any human brain can absorb not more than 40 minutes. It has been scientifically proven. Right. So it has been scientifically proven. Right. So, but still our classes will be for 50 minutes or 1 hour. Why is that? I mean, that is secondary. Right. So that is secondary. But still, if you sit for 40 minutes and concentrating what I am going to speak, right. So eliminating the unwanted information and take some information, and out of 40 minutes, even if you just consolidate for 10 minutes, at least you will get to know something called some information that what I am going to speak for these 60 minutes. Agree or disagree? Right. So that is called as a learning. Right. So for example, if you might have seen the kid, right? So this goes to a kindergarten, how exactly it learns, right? So there are various ways. Right. So there are various ways. Right. So I've told in many platforms. Right. So you see, right. So the kid, especially in the initial stages, right. So you just ask the kid how to write the character called A, right? So how to write a character called A, right? So you do any or you teach the kid in any way it doesn't learn unless otherwise that how the teacher teaches. Yes or no? Right. So it tells, right? So the kid tells you take one slanting line, right? So you take another slanting line, two slanting lines, right? So there is a sleeping line. So you join these two slanting lines, right? So put a sleeping line, then that will become a right. So you just you write like this, and there is a small a slope that you are going to show to that kid. The kid is not in a position to accept it. Why? Because that is his knowledge stage. Right. So why I'm telling this is right. So in fact, all these words, right? So called as the AI tools, right? So it's not 1 or 2 days or 10 years of outcome. Right. So it's all every day's requirement. Every day's requirement. Right. So automatically the computer science engineers or any other engineers. Right. So now I don't restrict only for the computer science engineers. Right. So more or less many engineers who are working in their own domains are creating the different tools and techniques, right? So to manage these kind of an automation, right? So to manage these kind of an automation, right? So first thing is learning takes place in many ways. Learning, you're seeing something, you learn, yes or no? Right. So you touch something, you'll get to know. The kid, for example, touches the fire in the first attempt. Yes or no? In the second attempt, never ever it touches. Why? Because it learns. Oh, there is some problem in that, in touching in that. Right. So learning. Right. So you learn by experience. Right. So you learn by experience. Right. So I never ever, I mean, being in good praise, right. So never ever you'll repeat that mistake. Right. So never ever you'll repeat that mistake. Right. So that is basically an learn. Right. So there are so many ways of different ways of learning. Right. So what exactly happened even in this? They are trying to consolidate it the way that people or the human beings are going to learn. Right. So for example, given a topic, right. So maybe person one will understand in one in one way, and the person two will understand in the another way, and the person three will understand in another way. But ultimately, how do we evaluate it? How do we evaluate it? We'll try to keep some form of interest because ultimately our brain is designed in such a way that it accepts only the quantitative values, quantitative attributes. Never ever we'll appreciate the quality varies from person to person. Yes or no? Even that is also a learning. Yes or no? How many of you like the Pickup here? I think boys now no, because she already as a kid, so I don't think so they like it, right? So now, if you ask here, right? So how many of you like Deepika Padukone, or how many of you like Yash? Right. So it depends, right? So we cannot say why do you like Yash or why do you like Deepika Padukone, because they have their own way of things in their mind. Right? So for example, what exactly he is looking in Deepika Padukone may not be same thing that what he is looking in Deepika Padukone. So this is the contextual dependent. Yes or no? Right. So this is contextual dependent. Right. So that is how actually the brain works. And Professor Guru was telling, right. So especially for the languages, right. So especially for the languages, right. So see, my phone is there, right. So and even if I shout from here, hey Siri, see, 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 how it is possible, right. So how it is possible, though, right. So though madam's phone is not trained to me, right. So though madam's phone is not trained to me, but still it is able to identify how it is possible. Right. So, but don't you think that there is something which is, which is very, tricky that is going on in that phone? Right. So, and especially in the regional languages, he was telling, right. So, it's a very challenging task. Right. So, it's a very challenging task. And especially in the academics, as per the NEP rules, though we don't follow, right. So, as per the NEP rules, they are telling we're supposed to teach only in the regional languages. Right. So, only in the regional languages. We don't know what will be the future. Right. So, you just imagine the complexity of building, the complexity of such, problems. Right. So, now I just simply stand here. I got to know that madam's phone recognized my voice and can do, any kind of a mistake. If I say, and I don't. Right. So if I say, hey Siri, call Vice Chancellor, and maybe if she has told Vice Chancellor, automatically it gets connected. Yes or no? It's all basically how exactly it got trained. Right. So and especially from the regional languages, it's a very challenge. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್. It's a very challenging task. Right. So especially in the regional languages. Right. So especially in the regional languages. And unfortunately and unfortunately, English is the worst language. I mean, if there are anybody from English department, I apologize for that. But because the reason is the same. Right. So because it has got many meanings for the same word. If you take the Kannada example, a simple our own language Kannada, the meaning of Berabu. I think I told in many class also in the earlier class. Right. So Berabu. What is the meaning of Berabu? Astonished. Yes. Astonished. Yes. That's an amazing word. Astonished. Yes. I mean something exclamatory element. Exclamatory. Something exclamatory. Yes. Only one meaning. Only one. Yes. Ascharya. Yes. Ascharya. You can surprise. You can say surprise. Astonished. And then now the complexity arises. Now you are supposed to build these kind of tools, especially to handle these kind of words. Right. So Berabu, see, astonished. Right. So and see, you used a word called ascharya, surprise, surprise. But if you use the same word, right? So don't take it in the other way. If I make a statement saying that, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೆರಗ್ ಬಂದೊಳಂಗ್ ಆಡ್ತಾಳೆ ಅವಳು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, now you just tell me what is the meaning of this ಬೆರಗು. ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಬೆರಗ್ ಬಂದೊಳಂಗ್ ಆಡ್ತಾಳೆ. I think it's a Kannada slang. What is the meaning of that now? ಅಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್. ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ ವರ್ಡ್ ನಾವು ಬೆರಗ್ ಬಂದವಳ ಅಂಗಡಿದಾವೆ ಹುಚ್ಚುಚ್ಚಂಗ್ ಆಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಆಡ್ತಾಳೆ ಹುಚ್ಚುಚ್ಚಂಗ್ ಆಡ್ತಾಳೆ. ಎನಿ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ you see ultimately see the complexity why I'm telling and the accent. I just said yes, that is my accent. Right. So if you take the regional languages, right, so you just go 60 kilometers away from this Mysore towards south, you have Chamarajanagar. The accent is very, very different. Right. So it goes to a peak. Right. So the language and the words that they are going to use, or katte madala, hinge ಹಿಡಿತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ. Right. So Chamarajanagar ಭಾಷೆ. Right. So similarly, you go to HD Kote, just that is also 60 kilometers away. All tribal mixed languages. And if you go 100 kilometers away from this side towards North Madkeri you will get, right? So Madkeri language itself is changes. And Mandya goes into conflict. Right. So they'll start with this slang, end with this slang. Right. So now why I'm telling this example, you see the challenges. Right. So you see the challenges. Right. So there are so many challenges. And ultimately, we have not done anything, sir. Right. So we have not done anything, or any computer science engineers have not done anything which is, to feel that, this is our work and we should feel proud. No, definitely no. So that is why still today that there is no Nobel Prize, especially this year they awarded, but in a different discipline. Right. So the only thing is, it's all just because of how our human brain works. That's it. We try to imitate that. That's it. Right. So Vice Chancellor was telling, right? So they're using salutations, right? So for the words, right? So I don't want to call Dr. Pushpa Tupad. I don't want to call her as Dr. Pushpa Tupad. I want to call her Professor Pushpa Tupad. But what does your, tool recommends? It recommends Dr. Pushpa Tupad. No, I don't want to use that. But still it prompts. Right. So now if you see your emails, right, so you just try to type one or two words. Right. So it keeps on prompting. Right. So it tries to keeps on prompting. How does it takes place? It all takes learning. Right. So as our human brain, right. So as I said, so these tools are developed basically by keeping the benchmark of how exactly our brain thinks. That's all actually they have done. Right. So nothing else. Right. So nothing else. And how long it can go? Right. So till the new ideas that are going to get generated by a human being get saturated. That's it. Other than that, no. Right. So why Grammarly? What is basically Grammarly is doing? Everybody is using Grammarly. What is Grammarly? Otherwise, it is been inbuilt in the Gmail, Google. Yes or no? What is Grammarly is doing? Grammarly is doing English professor's job. That's it. Yes or no? But still, don't you think it's a very dangerous? Right. So sometimes otherwise, right. So if you don't observe the words, right, so properly, right, so it may takes, right, so the different meanings, right. So especially if you use your own cell phone, you try to see the keyboard structure, right. So I'll be using many times, right. So swiping keyboards. Most of the time I'll be swiping my keyboards to generate the words. Sir, most of the times you believe it or not, whenever I swipe for SIRs, sir, right? So I want to wish my professor as sir, right? So in most of the time it recommends DOG dog, right? So you just try to see your keyboard, right? So just try to see your phone keyboard, right? So in most of the time if you swipe, right? So because the keys are, next to one. Right, so that is why rather than SIR typing, it is going to type DOG because English has got both the meanings, DOG as well as SIR. Right, so you see, unless otherwise, if you don't really give a thought, right, so it goes to a mess. Right, so in that sense, learning is a very important component. Right, so then, people, are talking something about deep learning and all. So what is deep learning? Right, so it's all one and the same, right? So but it is different nomenclature. Right. So people, right? So human beings are quite very ambitious, right? So they don't want to keep only one human brain or one human brain, right? So they want to keep multiple human brain, right? So in the skull, that is basically a deep learning, right? So trying to keep multiple brains. So one brain exclusively concentrate on academic activities. One brain exclusively concentrate on the fight that took place in the morning. Right. So one brain, right, so will be thinking about what should you cook in the evening. One brain will be thinking about what you are supposed to do to your kid, right? So if you are not there at home. See, multiple activities, with multiple brains, but in a single skull. Right. So these are actually the different learning texts. So that is why they used a word called deep learning. And now people are, talking about all deep learning, deep learning, deep learning. And this has got another amazing characteristics called such that it always keeps, right? So such that it always keeps that what exactly you will be looking for. Right. So that what exactly you will be looking for. So that is the best part. Right. So that is the best part. And if you compare these characteristics with the human being brain, with the human brains, this character doesn't exist in the human brain. So this is the only difference that you can showcase between the machine intelligence or the human intelligence or the human brain or the machine brain. So what is that characteristics? That is considered, I mean, except Mala and Vimarsha, you are not supposed to answer. Right. So you both are not supposed to answer because they know the answer. Right. So except these two, right. So can you just tell me one of the real wonderful characteristics or the feature of the human brain which you cannot see in the machine or machine brain? Thinking. Thinking it does wonders. Machine does wonders. I mean, just try to compare and contrast. Humanity. Emotions, I don't think so. Emotions, you know that Sophia story, right? Emotions. Emotions. I'll come to you, Satyana. Emotions, because you know that story, right? So when Sophia was interviewed, I told right. So see, unless otherwise, if the mission doesn't have an emotions, that answer would have not come from you know Sophia. Who is Sophia?
A robot, yeah.
Sophia is a first human robot who was given an citizenship, right? So that too from a Muslim country, that is United Arab Emirates, right? So United Arab Emirates, and still, right? So she owns the citizenship. When CNN journalist was interviewing Sophia, so she answered that, right? So that what exactly you are looking for in the coming days, right? So what was the answer? That answer that was given by Sophia, that is a human robot, was that she wants to have a baby. You just imagine her emotions, right? So you just imagine her emotions. See, the robot is thinking that she wants to have a baby. You cannot say emotions doesn't exist in the machines, right? So it exists, right? So it exists. So only one fundamental, not to take too much of time, one fundamental characteristics, right? So that really exist, right? So in the human brain, which is highly appreciated, and that is why we are so stable in the present day, is recognition. No, is the concept of forgetting.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So we forget. Right? Otherwise, Nandish sir, would have gone mad. I know Nandish sir. Right. So high school ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು, PUC ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು, ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು, MTech ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು, ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರನ್ನ. Just imagine it's right. Off the records. Right? So just imagine, otherwise, if that concept or that characteristics is not there in our brain, right, so we would have gone mad. Every day, ಹಳೇದ್ನೇ ನೆನ್ಸ್ಕೊ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೊಡೆದಾಡು. Right, so that is another very interesting characteristics, right? So where you need to really give a thought, right? So which cannot be imitated by any machine still date. Right. So now actually coming to this, title, enhancing academic writing skills. Vice Chancellor said an amazing statement. He made an amazing statement saying that now people lack writing skills now. Right. So then where is the point of enhancing? Right. So where is the point of enhancing? Right. So, sir, you take it from me. Savita madam, you wanted to tell some answer. No, no, no. You just tell what was that answer?
So I was just trying to say that Harshan is data driven. What data have I?
Okay, okay. That's true. That I
That's how I cover up.
okay.
Since learning is not like being by too much.
That is acceptable, but still I have another tool that I showcase you. Right. So that learns are the same thing because it is totally data driven. All these AI tools that what we are seeing is all data driven. So that is why unless otherwise if there is no input, it doesn't work anything. But you see our human brain, does your human brain works between night 10:30 to 7:30 or whatever the time that you sleep? Right. So it will be so calm. Right. So something is taking place in your human brain. Right. So something is taking place in your human brain. Right. So it pauses, it stills. There are so many phases of sleepness. Right. So there are so many phases of sleepness which cannot be imitated by any machine. Right. So I come to this point, writing skills. right? So days are not far, right? So nobody is going to see all these things, right? So carrying pen, right? So carrying books, carrying files, right? So see how much money that we are wasting or resource that we are wasting, right? So money is secondary, but resource that we are wasting, right? So the days are not far, right? So it's already in many of the developed countries and many of the developed universities. There is a concept called BOYD, 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 BOYD. BOYD stands for bring your own device, right? So bring your own device, right? So that's it, right? So they need not to carry anything, right? So I think you might have seen, right? So I think you might have seen, right? So especially the PUC level students, right? So they are bombarded with so many instruments, right? So ಅವನೇನೋ ಆಕಾಶ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅವನೇ ಒಂದು ಆಪ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಅದೇನೋ ಬೇಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ ಬೇಸ್ ಅವನೇ ಒಂದು ಆಪ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ, ದೆನ್ Vedantu, Vedantu E gives its own app, right? So where is the learning time to the kid, right? So where is the learning time to the kid? How at least we should give some time to write, right? At least for 3 hours, the kid wants to write Andre. So he was telling, the vice chancellor was telling FYKI. Do you think that the register is going? Because I have seen closely register. Do you think FYKI is typed by registrar? Register PS will type only F. Right. So immediately YKI will be automatically generated and press enter go. That's it. That's all he'll do. Right. So why is that? See, that is the level of understanding of what exactly or how exactly a registrar is giving a thought for an email. Right. So for an email. Right. So that is where actually these tools plays a very, very important role. And we'll just try to look some tools. And this is about the learning, deep learning, right? So learning, deep learning, all put together, right? So AI cannot, artificial intelligence cannot be seen or cannot exist without the learning phase. Pragna, agree?
Sir, I have a question.
Ah.
You said about the notion of forgetting, no? Probably the concept of unlearning is being introduced, right?
That is once again within data driven, right? So because
there
why
is-
you need to reach certain level of saturation, then obviously it has to be unlearning has to take
that
place.
we are
Right,
trying
so-
to eliminate.
Correct, but unlearning also takes place with an human intervention, but with your brain, no. Max to max half an hour, right? So worst case half an hour. Who is going to remember that Darshan has committed some crime now? Do you still remember that? If I take that name, you will remember. Right. So otherwise, no one cares about that. Similarly, you see how our politicians are going to win in spite of so many number of things. People forget. That is the beauty. See, they are encashing that. Right. So they are encashing that characteristics. People forget. Right. So people forget. Right. So they works with so many strategies. Why can't we think in those lines? Right. So where they are not going to, which we are not going to see in this. Right. So I think, and you might be knowing, and another very important member of parliament is still in jail. I don't want to name his name. He's still in jail. Why? I mean, from the Karnataka state. He's still in jail. Don't you think that he has a capacity to come out of the jail? Right. So though Darshan has committed, I mean, people will say, or the law says that he has committed a crime, but he already is out. Right. So, but why not the person who has not committed a murder but still is in a jail? Because he is just waiting for the time or giving a time for the people to forget. Right. So that is what actually we need to understand. Right. So here, so machine learning, data learning in different ways. There are so many ways. Everything is automation. Right. So everything is automation. Each and every step that we are going to see, right, so will be an automation. Right. So how we are going to use this? Right. So how ethically, because there is a called ethics, right? So in your title, right? So ethically we need to use, right? So ethically we need to use these tools, right? So that is what actually we are supposed to learn from this workshop, right? So no doubt there are thousands of tools that are coming out, right? So there are thousands of tools that are coming out, but you should really see the consequences, Right, so you should see really see the consequences. Do you know what happened to Neha Kakkar?
Yes.
Neha Kakkar. Huh?
Singer.
Huh?
The singer.
Who is Neha Kakkar?
Singer.
Singer.
She
She's a
was
singer. How many of you don't know Neha?
Bollywood singer.
She is a Bollywood singer, and within a short span of time, you know, she has become big.
Indian Idol.
Yeah, an Indian Idol judge. Right. So, and you know this Kapil Sharma show,
Yes.
right? So you know this Kapil Sharma. You know what happened in that show? Do you know, madam? No. Right. So especially just 10 days back. Right. So it was so unfortunate day to her. Right. So while interviewing, right. So Kapil Sharma asked a question. So you are just an singer, and almost the way that you are leading a life, right? So is in big way. The question was, how are you making a money? Right. So how are you making a money? Right. So and she promptly answered. Right. So she promptly answered that how she was making a money. But unfortunately, she didn't know that the camera was turned on and it was going live. What she prompted was, right, so she told that she was using some AI tool. Right. So she was using some AI tool. I don't want and don't search in the Google and don't try to venture into that, kind of tools. Right. So I mean people say that there is an output, but it keeps your life mess. Don't do that. Right. So she said, right, so and to test that that what whether she has said this right or not, the Hindustan Times journalist, right? So did the real time experimentation or the real time investment and saw whether what she said is right or wrong, and it was true, right? So she said that she used some AI tool. I do a dash. I put some dash AI tool, and she invested 18,000 rupees, just 18,000 rupees. Right, so just 18,000 rupees. And by the end of the Kapil Sharma's show, she did it there only on the show. Right, so but now all these things are blocked in the YouTube as well as Kapil Sharma's show. Right, so within the end of that Kapil Sharma's recording, her 18,000, right, so God added with 21,600 rupees. So 18,000 has become 21,600 rupees. Just a matter of 3 hours. What was the profit? 3,600 rupees. She did nothing. Everything was did by the AI. Right. So within the span of 6 hours, right. So ED, the Department of Income Tax, right. So the Department of Finance Affairs, everybody gave a notice to her. Right. So everybody gave a notice to her. And also there was an non-bailable warrant was issued. Right. So but due to her capacity, she came out of that. Right. So but still she has to face the problem in the court. Why? Because she didn't, you know, she didn't use what or sense, right? So whether these things has to be told in the platforms or not, right? So which, right? So which I mean, later stage that tool has got, right? So that tool has got a span of within a span of 1 hour, there were more than 40 lakhs of hits to that particular token, and it was fully AI driven, right? It's fully AI driven. Right. So why I'm telling is because I was using a word called ethically. Right. So ethically, you cannot cheat the government. Right. So you cannot cheat the government. And there are so many tools that they can really play the things. Right. So where these things can be, avoided to the best extent. Yes.
Sir, is it related to stock market investment?
Yes. It is related to the market investments. Right. So we'll go, one by one. So this is how I already told the power of machine to copy intelligent human behavior. Right. So this is, do you call this as an artificial intelligence? Yes. So ultimately, I'm trying to imitate what exactly or how exactly my brain is thinking. That's it. Other than that, nothing. Right. So there is no anything, something that is going on big, especially in the artificial intelligence. And please remove your opinion, right? So from your mind that anything that is related to the computer science or the artificial intelligence or the machine learning is difficult to learn. Please remove that. Though you are an polymer science engineer, environmental engineer, or a civil engineer, So this is a subject which can be studied by anyone, which can be understandable by anyone, and which can be used by anyone. Right. So that is the flexibility that these things have. Right. So then, what is the difference between AI and the robot? Right. So just to think, programmed to think. Right. So it's where the very important thing that takes place, especially in the difference between the AI and the robot. Because sometimes, if you say if they doesn't have a literacy, especially in the field of computer science, right? So synonymically, they'll use a word called AI and the robots, but both are different. Right. So in case of an artificial intelligence, you will give space to think. Whereas in case of robots, no. Right. So you just advise you do it this. That's it. Right. So that is the difference between AI and robots. And in case of an artificial intelligence, you can have the social interaction. Right. So you can have a social interaction. How I and Rupa madam are very close friends. Right. So I and Rupa madam are very close friends. Right. So through Rupa madam, I have become a very close friend to Pushpa madam. That is called as a social interaction. Example is your Facebook. Right. So that is basically a social interaction. How come Pushpa madam is getting prompt to me through Rupa madam? How? How? Because sometimes you'll be seeing, right? So it will be prompting. See, the recommended, and especially, why these e-commerce sites have grown to this extent? Definitely, they should thank always ladies, right? So you buy one, right? So you will get one, right? So if you buy these two, you'll get these two extra, right? So if you buy these four, you'll get another this extra, right? So this extra, has made them, right? So rich, right? So you see the source, right? So is worry number two, right? So Amazon, we should thank us, right? So and it learns to a certain level, right? So only as smart as program, that's it. What you are going to instruct, it does, right? So for example, your mopping machines, right? So at home, right? So clean again, it just calculates the dimensions, it goes, it takes right turn, right? So even though just another 2 centimeters or 3 centimeters there is a dust, it doesn't touch. Why? Because it's a robot. Whereas intelligence, no, it senses, right? So it senses and it picks, right? So Turing test, this is something which is for a core computer science. You need not to worry about this because Alan Turing is the one who came out with this concept of machines, right? So involves an interpreter, a human, and a computer. Right. So that is what actually we do, right? So that is what actually we do. Yes, you have. Can AI and robots can be combined together? Yes, that is what is happening now. Yes, that is what is happening. For example, self-driven cars. Right. So if you just see without intelligence, that is basically a robot. Your car is basically a robot. But Elon Musk has added the intelligence to that. Right. So that is why it is become a smart car. Right. So that is why it has become a smart car. Yes, it can be done. Right. So here also if you see interpreter, human, and then computer. What do? We hear for some time, we store it, and whenever you want, you'll retrieve it. That's it. That is what actually the computer science is doing. Right. So that is what is the computer science is doing. Right. So interpretation plays a very, very critical role. Right. So and interpretation is always and context dependent. I mean to say context to dependent, and it also depends upon the person to person. Right. So and it also depends upon the person to person. We always say, right? So today morning itself, there was some statement called, Vice Chancellor apologized saying that due to some miscommunication, things got delayed. Right. So why is that? Why is that? Because it is in context dependent, right? So it is in context dependent, right? So it's a human created errors, right? So it's a human created errors, and especially on the facing slide, right? So a 3 days workshop on, right? So that was also a very amazing observation, right? So you cannot conduct a workshop on 19th to 21st. You can conduct a workshops on artificial intelligence, right? So how these things can be enhanced or how these types of flaws can be taken care by using these kind of tools. Right. So example, right. So Cleverbot, right. So autonomous cars, as Darshan sir rightly said, yes. Autonomous cars, yes. And you see drones,
Yeah.
drones now they are doing a tremendous job. right? So both constructive as well as destructive
Destructive.
jobs, right? So both the constructive as well as the destructive. And this is something, which is very interesting called Watson, right? So which was that is an IBM mission, right? So which was created very long back, and still it has got its own identity because of its, nature of thinking that it does, right? So nature of thinking that it does, right? So yeah, controversies, right? So maybe this will try to take at the later stages potential job takeover. Yes, because just in the 15-20 minutes back, I said, Basappa sir, you require only two, staff for your library because everything can be automated. But what about others? Right. So what about others? Right. So definitely they'll give a thought, right? Right. So see my laptop, I trained my laptop. I'll send my laptop through my, a personal assistant, and she'll come and keep the laptop, and my laptop speaks everything. Then what is the necessity of me here standing? And my machine can understand, as I already told, it can understand emotions. It can take question and answer. Then what is the need of me? On same lines, our students also will be thinking. If we think that I'm, supernaturally I am conducting the classes for 50 minutes solid, ultimate attention ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು 50 ನಿಮಿಷ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರಷ್ಟು ಫೂಲಿಶ್ನೆಸ್ ಯಾವ ಟೀಚರ್ದು ಅಲ್ಲ. Please, I mean, including me, I am telling, because even I am also a teacher. Never ever they'll do that. Right. So that is why I have seen anytime the kids sitting in the first place or the first table or the second table, never. In most of the classes they don't do. Right. So that is why the first thing that I'll do, I mean, that is my personal habit. The first and foremost thing that I'll do is you call everyone to the first, row. Whether you like it or not, you just sit in front of me. Right. So that they can't do anything. Right. So these things we need. I mean, the understandably, because who is going to, who is going to worry about what I'm going to speak for 60 minutes? There are so many things. Right. So there are so many things in the world that exist. Can I give some, at least some extra information for a minute? Right. So which is not there on my slide. Right. So that is the real capacity of a teacher. Right. So at least for 10 minutes out of 1 hour, at least can I give any additional information which is not in the books, which does not exist in the literature, or could you give some, breakthroughs? See, this is what the, theory says. You can also do like this, ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ maybe at least ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲೂ only 5% of the students will accept it and will appreciate. Otherwise, never ever they care for us. Right. So see, growing laziness because of that. Right. So growing cost. Right. So can be reduced. Priority argument. Right. So robot relationships. Right. So there are so many things that really controversy that takes place. Right. So why it matters? Right. So maybe I'll touch upon in the last slides. Right. So coming directly to the academic writing skills. Right. So see, we are seeing many things like writing assistants, plagiarism checkers, research tools. Students and scholars can improve the quality, efficiency, and accuracy of academic writing. So first we need to understand what is basically an academic writing. Right. So what is basically an academic writing? Any content that we are going to post on this slide. Right. So any content that we are going to post on this slide. Right. So or on the notes or on the lecture notes. Right. So let the language be anything, because engineering doesn't require language. Agree? Engineering doesn't require language. Engineering requires the theories. Right. So the engineering requires theories. Right. So because the medicine requires language. Right. So the medicine requires language. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ವರ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. No does not. Right. So no doesn't ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನೇ ತುಂಬಾ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. But engineering ಅಲ್ಲಿ it doesn't matter because we play with mathematics. You go to any department, go to environmental, go to polymer science, go to E&I, go to computer science. Computer science is full of mathematics because you'll play with mathematics. It doesn't require any language, but the medicine requires language. Similarly, other languages, law, right? So law requires language, right? So see, that's kind of an, domains, right? So your writing skills should be so sophisticated, right? So it should be clearly, crisply told, right? So because sometimes, right? So sometimes or in most of the times, and end users will be reading. There is a word of something called reading in between the lines. Reading in between the lines. What is that reading in between the lines?
Understanding the context.
If there is an ambiguity in your writing, right? So it could lead, right? So it could lead to an any kind of an understanding.
Understanding.
Right. So we need to avoid, right? So that such kind of an ambiguity, especially in our academic writings, right? So especially for our academic writings, right? We should be very, very clear that what exactly we wanted to convey, right? So coming to the writing assistants, I try to touch upon some of the tools that exist, right? So maybe more or less you might have used all these tools, but how? Only because of the the training and plagiarism checkers. So this is becoming a big news, especially see what is this? Your university is putting 15% plagiarism, 10% plagiarism, literature survey 0% plagiarism, third chapter should be 10% plagiarism, 5%. What is that exactly? Why plagiarism? See, because copyright, right? So because in the country like India, we don't give priority for these things, but now we made it compulsory. Right. So now we made it compulsory. Right. So because we wanted to maintain the privacy of the information. We wanted to maintain the integrity and the confidentiality of the information. Right. So hence, right. So plagiarism is playing a very, very important role. Right. So I mean, nobody can, will sit and, find, how exactly it can be done. You just, Basappa sir has got Turnitin. You just, feed it from which paper you have extracted, how many lines you have extracted. Right. So it gives in different colors. If you see, full film ತರನೇ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ. Right. So film ತರನೇ ತೋರಿಸ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. Blue, orange, pink, red. ಎಲ್ಲ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 38% of plagiarism found ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ಎದೆ ದಸಕ್ತದೆ. You see, the research scholars, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಸೆಟ್. Right. So you do whatever. Right. So you write on your own. Right. So you have so many other tools that are there. ಈಗ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Right. So ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕಿಂಗ್ ಬೈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್. ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಪ್ಲಾಜರಿಸಮ್ ಬರುತ್ತಾ? ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ? ಅದೇ ವರ್ಡ್ಗೆ ರೈಟ್ ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸಿನಾನಿಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. You try to replace that with the synonyms, but unfortunately, they never know whether that is the right context word to use or it will be giving some other meaning. Right. So it will be giving some other meaning. ಅದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಈಗ. Right. So now this is one stage. Stage 1. Stage 2 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಮತ್ತೆ they are so advanced, they'll use AI tools itself. ಅಂದ್ರೆ everything ಗೆ ಮೋಸ ಮಾಡಂತ tools. Right. So rephrase tool. Right. So you rephrase tools ಅಂತ ಬಂದಿರುತ್ತೆ. Right. So you rephrase tool ಗೆ you give a paragraph. Right. So such that it rephrases with its own set of words. So that is what actually LLMs ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಡ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ, large language models ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ಸ್ ಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರ. So that is how actually these tools will do. Right. So even there they'll get misled. Right. So especially on the plagiarism. And see, especially the students and the scholars. Why the importance is given to the students and the scholars? Right. So you should always right. So we being and teachers, we should always communicate to the end users. Our end users are students. We should educate them. You write whatever you want. You write on your own. Right. So let it be whatever. Right. So if that meaning is not conveying, you come and explain. Right. So at least we are trying to tell them. See, your naturality is expected by the supervisor. Right. So unless otherwise, if you don't do that, even the kids will do the same thing. And especially see the scholars. Right. So underline scholars. Why research scholars? Because they will be in so much of stress. Right. So because they will be in so much of stress, they'll be doing a rat race. Right. So they'll be doing a rat race. What is that rat race? Right. So 4 years, 2 scoopers, do whatever you generate. But you pick one paragraph from this paper, another paragraph from the another paper, another paragraph from another paper, and experimentation. You put some random values. You generate one paper and you feed it. But unfortunately, showing 40% of plagiarism. Right. So we have everything. Right. So we have everything. Right. So and presently, I think we present the research scholars are quite blessed when compared to the previous generations. right? So when compared to the previous generation, right? So the present set of generations are very much blessed, right? So because for the present research scholars, other than research, they don't do anything. Rupa madam will agree with me, right? So other than research, they don't do anything. You just sit for 8 to 10 hours. You do the research. So that is a big problem for them. But during our days, it was something else. Right. So 70% you are supposed to do your guide's job. Agreement? Right. So and another 30% you have research time. And another 30% time only you should come out with the best out of best. And there are no as such any tools. Right. So there are no as such any tools. Right. So ಆಗೆಲ್ಲ ಯಾವ ತರ generation ಇತ್ತು. Right. So we used to wait for 2 years, 3 years to get a guide. Right. So now guides only will be calling, come. I have vacancy. See, the trend is getting changed. Agreed, Rupa madam? That's what is happening now. So that is what is happening, right? So see, where do these scholars immediately if they get to know, Hema madam I'm right? Right. So immediately if they get to know that they'll be completing 4 years, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹಿಂಗ್ ಬಂದು ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡೋದು ಸರ್ 4 years ಮುಗಿತು ಫೀಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಕಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟಪ್ಪ ಪೇಪರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಸರ್ ತೀಸ್ಕೂಪ ಸರ್ ಹೇಳಿದಾರಲ್ಲ can you write a thesis of at least 100 pages, at least 100 pages of thesis with only two Scoopus publication or two Scoopus journals? Is it possible? See, at least if you plan for 5 chapters in your thesis, right? So first chapter ಬಿಟ್ಟಾಕ್ಬಿಡಿ ಇಂಟ್ರಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕದ್ದಿರೋದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಬರ್ದಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಮೀ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಟೆಲಿಂಗ್ ರೈಟ್ ಸೊ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್ ಸರ್ವೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಬರ್ದಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅದೇ ಬೇರೆ ತರ ರೀಫಾರ್ಮುಲೇಟ್ ಬರ್ದಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಸೊ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡಿ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೂಪಸ್ ಇದೆ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೂಪಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗೀತು ಫಿಫ್ತ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಕನ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ see where can you find the quality of the research right why I'm telling this is the practical things that are and the facts that I'm telling see how does these scholars right so should justify you eliminate introduction you eliminate literature survey you eliminate conclusion you eliminate everything you present what is the solid solid work to say that this is my work that I have done for my thesis right so that is what actually we present right so that capability comes provided only if you have a good writing skills and good thinking skills and good learning skills right so good learning skills so grammar checker why grammar checker because I mean most of us including me maybe in my 60-65 minutes of time I have done so many mistakes especially grammar mistakes because my daughter will be always telling papa whatever the English that you are using ಆ ವರ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ನಾನು ಕೇಳೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತಾಳೆ ಸೊ ಐ ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿ ಅಗ್ರಿ ಹೌದು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೈ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಓದ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅದೋದ್ತೀನಿ ಐ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಅವೇ ಐ ಅಗ್ರಿ ವಿತ್ ದಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಬಟ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ರೈಟ್ ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯು ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ in your research paper which is going to an international platform yes or no because it reflects your own identity it reflects your supervisor potentiality it reflects ultimately the quality of the university that what you are doing right yes or no so we should be little cautious at least see there are I have given so many things like grammarly pro writing aid ginger right so there some of them are some of them are freely available right so some of them are freely available some of them are paid right so maybe Baswan I mean Basapasa is grammarly has not taken in our library but he may recommend today right so after seeing this right so at least for exclusively for the research scholars ಒಂದು 40 ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಗ್ರಾಮರ್ಲಿ ಥೀಸಿಸ್ ಬರೆಯೋ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ತಪ್ಪಿದ್ರೆ ಪೇಪರ್ ಬರೆಯೋ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ರೈಟ್ ಸೊ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೂಲ್ಸ್ ರೈಟ್ ಸೊ ಅಟ್ ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಟ್ is it ultimate no it is not ultimate you have to work on it right so you have to work on it because it is not guaranteed I'm telling you it is not guaranteed because English is very very poor language right so English is very 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 poor language and just the English contains only 26 characters and ruling the whole world
Yes, sir.
right so and ruling the whole world right so you should be little cautious in that Right. So then you have, I mean, out of these, the best one is Grammarly, no doubt on it, because this is presently standing. Right. So this is presently standing, but there are other tools are also there. Right. So, but try to make use of. Right. So you see, sentence clarity. Right. So sentence clarity. I think you might have seen in most of the research scholars. Right. So you agree with me or disagree with me. That is secondary. Right. So you just tell. Right. So especially this question goes to the research scholars or the who are doing their research, or including us, including me. I am telling. Any document is written for you. Right. So for example, you are supposed to conduct a workshop. Right. So then you are supposed to write a letter to the university registrar. Right. Have you any time given a time to go through what exactly you have written? Right. So, and especially you just think about your research articles. Have you given a time to just go through your own document that what you have written? Right. So because there will be thousands of mistakes. ನಿಮ್ ಕೈದು ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಫುಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವೇನೋ ಅಂತ ಓ ಸಾರಿ ಸರ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಫುಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Why is that error? Because you are not interested in going through your own particle, right? So then definitely you need to look for these kind of things, right? So avaga tools will play a very important role. Word choice and tone, right? So tone ಒಬ್ರೊಬ್ರು ಬರೀತಾರೆ kindly accept and oblige. What is oblige? Why should we oblige? I am going for an industrial trip, kindly accept and oblige. What is that? Right, so what is that? Right, so thanking you. BS Harish and Bark Bisaktini. Right, so then is it right? See the tone I am telling. Right, so the tone I am telling. Right, so it should be very convincing. Right, so it should be very convincing. It should be very soothing. Right, so ನಿಮ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ಹೈಯರ್ ಅಥಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿ ಯಾರ ನಿಮ್ ಎಚ್ ಓಡಿನೇ ಆಗ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಫ್ಲಾಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬರ್ದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಸೋ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಮಾಡೋ ತರ ಬರೆಯೋದು. Right, so I am doing this, you give the permission to this ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ right, so ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Right, so that is where actually real things and correct use of punctuation. This is very important. Where to put comma, when to put apostrophes, when to put double quotes, when to put exclamatory, when to put a question mark. But it's so unfortunate in many of the research articles I've seen personally. Right, so they use a word called how, why, right? So what? Can you use any interrogative words in the research articles of your own article? No, it should be avoided. Right? So how can you write a word called how? And in sometimes you are going to our work. Is it a right word? To write our work as has given a better result. Is it the more appropriate word to use our? Huh? No, right? So in that sense, right? So can you come out with some mechanism to replace such kind of an? Maybe it could be a very trivial examples that I am giving, but that really takes a lot of weightage, especially if you are doing the best out of best articles, right? So for the Q1 articles and all with high impact factors and all, right? So usage of English really plays most of the research articles, though they are highly competent, especially in the technical content, they got rejected because of poor language, right? So because of the poor language. And Turnitin, I need not to tell, right? So Bhattappa sir has done a wonderful job that he has taken in Turnitin, right? So accuracy, use style, saving everything, right? So you can use to the best out of best, right? So the eternity. But is it eternity in itself is sufficient, right? So for you, right? So to the certain extent, if you write on your own, it doesn't need, right? So the tool itself is doesn't need, right? So eternity. Then this is a this is a big headache, especially for the scholar or any teachers who are writing the articles, especially citing the reference, right? So especially the citing the reference. It is a very see tools like Zotero, Mendeley, right? So EndNote use AI to organize and manage your research, automatically generating citations and bibliographies in various formats. Right, so there are various formats like APA format, MLA format, Chicago format. There are so many formats. Right, so one publishers will use different or will ask for different types of
For
citations. Right. So how do you manage? And for a thesis, at least minimum, how many references expected in general sense? At least 150 references. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
At least 50 references. Do we expect all the 50 references that you have cited in the bibliography should be cited in your inside thesis in any one of the chapter? Yes or no? You cannot leave simply, be a suggestion, citation sigle no. It doesn't work out. Right. So if you have cited 50 references and all those 50 has to be cited somewhere else in your thesis. But how do you manage that? And you give your chapter to madam. Madam will change ಈ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಗ್ರಾಫ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಿತ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತೆಗೆದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Then how do you manage this reference? How do you manage this reference? Okay, APA is APA is little acceptable because APA plays with the nomenclature. APA plays with the nomenclature. But if you see IEEE standards, they'll play with the numbers. That is a big headache. Right, so that is a big headache. ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ 27 ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ 29 ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ if you have cited 50 citations, then the entire thesis will be a disaster. Right, so and that gives a great chance for a reviewer to reject your thesis. You see the level of importance of citing things, right? So existing now Crossref is gaining a lot of popularity because of the open source. So what is open source? Freely available, right? So it's a freely available tool, right? So Crossref is getting a lot of importance, but Mendeley, right? So is really playing a very very important role. But do you know something that there is a tool called LaTeX? How many of you know there is a tool? I mean, other than there is something called LaTeX. If you use LaTeX, I think that it takes place, right? So, but if you are using MS Word, right? So, if you are using MS Word now, MS Word has come out with the various. I mean, especially the 360, right? So, Office 360, right? So, it has come out with some kind of an reference benchmarks. But ultimately, you need to integrate between the reference section and your thesis chapters. Right, so that is very, very important, right? So this is for the reference management and the citations. Content generation and brainstorming. This is another very important requirement that where the tools plays a very, very important, right? So the content generation, you need to create a content, right? So you need to generate a content, right? So this plays a very, very important role, right? Because why this plays a very, very important role? And you have already the solution, right? So then why are you, giving an headache for us, right? So because a simple example that I wanted to tell you is our own, my own university, right? So some of our research scholars are not maintaining the submission of the progress reports and the DAX, right? So on time, right? So on time, right? So they failed to submit the DAC proceedings and the progress report. So we need to streamline it, right? So because the administrator's job is that, right? So they need to streamline it. So what did the administrator told? Right. So you are supposed to write a justification that why it got delayed. But sir and madam, I tell you, right? So we have received more than 35 such kind of an justification and clarification. Unfortunately, out of 35, minimum 25 to 30 I've quoted the same reasons. Right. So then, out of curiosity, I just typed randomly using ChatGPT that how this letter got generated. Right. So then I used a word called writing an apology letter for delay in progress submission. The same set, the letters that they have submitted. Right. So see, why I am telling this is use, but it is trying to kill your potentiality. Right. So use ChatGPT. Right. So, but it is trying to kill your potentiality. Can you accept your kid? I mean, our kid, including my kid, can we accept our kid doing an assignment or doing an homework using ChatGPT? Why we are doing? It is not acceptable. Right, so it is not acceptable. So what is this? Simply, if you dig more technically, it does nothing. Right, so it does nothing. Right, so the word is very fancy, but it does not does nothing. What does this chat GPT stand for? What does this GPT stand for? Chat and then what is that chat? You do something, you'll ask, how are you, Pushpa ma'am? You'll answer something. Yes, sir, I'm good. Madam, had your lunch? She'll ask. Right, so you, whatever the queries that you are going to ask, right, so automatically the replies will be generated. Right, so for that, I think in the very beginning, one of the participants said that you require something called training. Yes or no? Right, so you need something called training. Right, so training in what sense? Training in what exactly? You know, this recommendation system. I was telling you, know, e-commerce sites. Right. So especially during the festival seasons, the Black Day, Black Box Day, Big Billion Day, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಬರೋದು why during the festival times? It's only because of this. They understood your pattern. Right. So they understood your pattern of what exactly you'll be looking for. Right. So as soon as you purchase bread in Zomato, why the jam will be prompted to you?
Yeah.
Because that's acceptable.
Yes.
Right, so that is always acceptable. Right, so similarly, how exactly this takes place is this GPT and I used a word called deep learning in the very beginning. So that is basically it tries to keep the multiple brains in the skull and tries to use your patterns. GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformers. Generative pre-trained transformers. So that is nothing but right. So I spend maximum time in understanding what Rupa Madam will do. And the next 115, I know what exactly Rupa Madam will do. How it is possible? I know the pattern. Right. So I know the pattern. How we are going to correct the blue books? Right. So how we are going to correct the blue books? Right. So 60 blue books within 60 minutes. Yes or no? ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೂ 45 ಮಿನಿಟ್ಸ್ ಸಾಕು ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋಗಿರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಇವತ್ತು ಬಂಡವಾಳ ಏನು because he got trained. And third test ಅಂತೂ gone case. Within 30 minutes, everything you wrap up and will finish out. Similarly, the digital valuation. Simply scroll ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. Even I do the same thing. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ scroll I know everything, what is his potential, because I have given almost 15 assignments. Don't I know the capacity of my student? Though, don't I understand my postgraduate student? Don't I understand his capability? I have 10, 15 students. Right. So how much time do you need to understand your 15 postgraduate students? Right. So within writing style alle ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗೋಗುತ್ತೆ. Right. So ಇದು ಈ ಬರ್ದಿರೋದು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ within writing style alle you can understand. Right. So that is why, right. So this Quillbot, Jasper and ChatGPT. Quillbot and Jasper, they are all, why they are not so popular. It's only because of we need to pay. Right. So we need to pay, but still, they use little flexibility in using that. Right. So, but not to the best features. Whereas ChatGPT, it's an open AI. Right. So it's basically works upon open AI platform. And ಅವನಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಫೀಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್ ಟು ಯು. You keep on feeding. As much as you keep on training, machines gets trained. Right. So that is how the content generation takes. Right. So that is how the content generation takes place. But these things, sir, I tell you, especially for the research scholar, right? So this is most dangerous, sir. Right. So this is really most dangerous using ChatGPT. Right. So because it can easily reveal your identity that what type of or what quality of work that you have done. Right. So my sincere request, right? So use this to get the information. Right. So use this to get the information, but don't come to a conclusion that whatever the information that you get out of this ChatGPT itself is best. Right. So don't do that. Right. So for the writing skills, I think this is not really. I'll share these slides to you. Right. So for writing, you have ChatGPT, Jasper, and Copy AI. Right. So for video, you have Quickie, Super Creator, Runway. Right. So these are the different tools that are available. Right. So maybe you can really recommend to the library. Right. So you can really recommend to the library. Right. So for the writing, right. So ChatGPT, right. So Jasper or Copy AI And for coding, I think you ask any computer science students, right? So you'll always, you'll be very comfortable with GitHub, right? So GitHub or Kaggle, right? So GitHub or Kaggle, right? So why is that? Because you will get any type of codes that you are looking at, right? So you get any type of codes that you are looking for. See, in our days, right? So during our days, I don't know now whether that is followed or not, right? So in our days, right? So when we were doing our PhD, it was like an open system, right? So it was like an open system, and everybody should participate. Though the scholars are from Pushpa Madam, or from Nagashri Madam, or from Ema Madam, but we all four are from the same department. My scholar has to participate with her team, and her scholar should participate with Madam, team. That is how actually we were working, and we used to put the codes in the central system. Codes and programs, right? So such that the other research scholars should not spend time in coding the same thing. Right. So to avoid that, this GitHub came into picture. Right. So for example, I tell you there are polymer science engineers, environmental engineers, chemists are there. Right. So instrumentation engineers are there, and polymer engineers are there. They don't need not to do anything. They can just go to an or GitHub or any Kaggle or anything. Right. So you get a source code. You just catch hold of the first year student because they'll be knowing the fundamentals of programming, and you tell, see, this is what we have done using using human intervention, and this has to be automated. You do this task, and tomorrow you take it from me, that will become a poor paper. It's just nothing but integrating polymer science with computer science because nobody has done the automation. Right. So, for example, soil testing. Right. So, Madam Kesari, soil testing. Right. So, you have so many different programs that exist in the GitHub. Right. So, can you make use of that? All the you just give the soil parameters. ಏನೇನು ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಏನೇನು ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ವೆಟ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಸುಮಾರು ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ just feed that, right? So you'll get an out. Right. So no doubt within a span of 3 years, you can produce an amazing research scholar who has done an extensive interdisciplinary research in the field of environmental engineering by making use of computer science. That is how actually we need to give it out. So what is the role of library? The role of library is to support, facilitate, right? So facilitate to these kind of things. Right. So they need to push. They need to tell all the students. They need to tell all the teachers. See, these are the tools that we have. Try to make use of. Right. So, for example, images. Right. So, for example, how much time I have spent, especially in preparing these PPT slides. Can you just imagine? Can you just imagine how much time I have spent, especially in preparing these PPT slides? I think my slides are not more than 20, 21 slides. I'm already in 13 slides. Can you just guess at least how much time I have spent in creating these slides? Hmm? Yes. Yes. I have not taken more than 15 minutes to create these slides. Right. So I have not spent more than 15 minutes to create these slides. Right. So because you can do wonders. There are so many highly sophisticated tools. Right. So Adralunu you get design. These are all plain. Why plain? Because my university has put a constraint that you are supposed to use only this template. Otherwise, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ಸಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಫುಲ್ಲು ಹಾಕಿ ಸೌಂಡಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಹಾಕಿ right. So and it requires another 5 minutes. That's it, not more than that. Right. So within 20 minutes you can create an wonders. Right. So for that, if you have a tool in your university, maybe the librarian should support it. Right. So buying a canvas, canvas. I think
Canvas, yes.
Manjunath, you can ask it.
Yes, sir.
Right. So it does so much of creativity work. Right. So it does so much of creativity work. Right. So can you give that offers to everyone? Even if you go to an Linux ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಮಾಡೋದು ನೀವು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು using X platform.
LibreOffice.
Text is right out of my mind. Right. So text is for the reference creation. But similarly for LaTeX, you have no, you have something that too. Right. So where you can create the PPT presentation. Right. So where you can Beamer. Right. So you can do amazing things. Right. So in the LaTeX. Right. So images. Right. So then See, research assistants, why do you need this? Right. So, I mean, sir, ಒಂದು 5 ನಿಮಿಷ ತಗೋಬೋದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಕಾಲ್ ಆಯ್ತು another 5 minutes ಆಯ್ತು.
Wait.
Right. So research assistants, why do you need this tool? See, because everybody today, right? So if behind you, especially on your academics, if you are in the field of academics, whenever you go and stand on any platform, and if you say that I am this, the first and foremost thing that they'll do, including teachers and the students, the first and foremost thing that they'll do is they'll just Google it. Who is this fellow? Right. So what is his area of working? How much capacity he has got to bore us? Right. So how much capacity he has got bore us? Right. So how long he can speak? What is his publication credentials? What is the area that he is working? Right. So don't you think it is needed? Definitely yes. Definitely yes. The entire university ranking is given based on this. How many number of citations you have? How many number of, what is your H index? What is your I index? Right. So in a year, for a given paper, what is the highest citations that you receive? Right. So then what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to showcase yourself. Right. So you are supposed to showcase yourself. Unless otherwise, if you don't showcase, right. So unless otherwise, if you don't showcase yourself, right. So nobody is going to bother. Right. So a simple and an amazing example that I give you is even still today. Right. So that is an history. So that is the beauty of these kind of tools. You go and type, especially in the domain of SJCE, you go and type the person who has got the highest number of citations. You still get today also Dr. Sidramaya. I think it passed 2 years back.
Yes.
Right. So you just see the level of existence that stands for it, whether you exist in this world or not, but your work stands for it. So for that you need to showcase it. Right. So how do you showcase it? Right. So use Google Scholar. Right. So we don't do that. Right. So we don't do that. Never ever will do that. Never ever will push our information. Why are you hesitant? See, if you have done a work, right, so you try to post it on the public platform, but please be careful, especially on the copyrights.
That's most important.
Yeah, that is more important. If you
Yes,
don't
yes.
know what is copyright, you please meet your librarian. Right. So please meet your librarian and understand what is copyright.
CCF, you just get to go the common communication format.
Yes, you need to follow the copyright. You cannot just push as and when the papers got accepted. No, because you will be violating the copyright rules, and they can sue like anything, including your university. Right. So $5,000 $6,000 fine ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ, I think it will be something. It will be your 6 months salary or 7 months
7
salary.
months, sir.
Right. So and your university also pay fine for that. Right.
It's
So
okay. If they're banned, that's the problem.
yes.
Fine, we can. But if you're banned from that
Correct.
research, it's very difficult.
So there is something called the blacklist, right? So which operates at the back end, right? So that is never ever they reveal that. How do they do? How your name will be traced, right? So for example, you will be identified as a reviewer. How you are going to Pushpa madam? I think in a week you will get at least one paper to review your article. How? Based on your work. Right. So based on your work. Right. So then you need to showcase to the world. See, I am existing here. My area of working is this. How do you do this? Right. So it's all through this. Right. So how many of you are not using ResearchGate? I think more or less everybody is using ResearchGate. Right. So if you are not using ResearchGate, it's my sincere request. Please create today itself of your own account. It's free of cost. ResearchGate, and try to push as much as your academical information. Right. So if you don't push, you are not going to get noticed. If you don't get noticed, you will be one among others. That's it. Correct. So you have so many things, tools like literature search, writing assistance, grammar and paraphrasing, citations. So this is the best tools that are available. Right. So especially
What's the last one?
that is for productivity. This is
What exactly?
that I tell you. Opomo Focus, Trello, and Notion. Productivity is something they need to quantify the level of work that you have done. Right. So you need to quantify the level of work that you have done. See, this SPSS package R and all there speaks about your data. but this speaks about your contribution, right? So to the domain. For example, something called nowadays people are talking something about SDG and all, sustainable development goals. How do you measure that? See, you are a polymer engineer and environmental engineer. I think it's three. I think SDG 3 or SDG 7. I don't know. Right. So I'm not sure. Right. So SDG 6 or 7, madam is telling, as per the information. Right. So 6 or 7. But how do you showcase that your paper, right? So is meeting the expectation of SDG? That is basically productivity. And nowadays, right? So nowadays, research is not becoming only for the publication. Research is becoming something you have to contribute to that particular society or to that particular domain, right? So that is how actually it is going to measure. Notion, right? So notion, what is the notion of people who are looking for, right? So for example, if you just say 2020 paper and 2021 paper, especially since I am from computer science, right? So I am telling you, you see many papers came especially on the COVID, right? So X-ray analysis using medical image processing for the COVID data. Why? That is the trend that is going on. Right. So that is the trend that is going on. That is the notion. Right. So that is why. So and quantification and qualitative. Right. So this is very, very important. And still actually the computers where actually the artificial intelligence lacks its intelligence, especially in this. The qualitative data is still, it's a big question mark. Right. So because the qualitative is always and contextual dependent. Right. So platforms like Scrivener and Notions can help you plan and structure long-term projects, breaking them into manageable sections. So this is what actually I told, right? So these tools ensure that each section has a logical flow and that arguments are presented in a clear, coherent manner, right? So that is you are trying to map your research outcomes to the end, right? So to the end. See, I've done something on water management, the quality of water management. Right. So this leads to something called SDG 6. Right. So that is how actually you need to do a mapping. But how it is possible? It depends upon how many number of research scholars are citing your work. Right. So how exactly your research is contributing to their work. Right. So whether your research work is giving a breakthrough. Right. So these are all the things that they need to study. Right. So this is something called the advanced language translation and enhancement tools that are available. Right, so all are available. Right, so Google Translate. I think everybody knows Google Translate. DeepL, Google Translate we have used. Right, so I think each and every language now we haven't translated. Right, so each and every language we haven't translated. Either you speak Italian, either you speak Spanish, or either you speak Russian. Right, so every language can be automatically converted to this translation. And there is a Microsoft translator who are also playing a big role, right? So we're also playing a big role. But this is, especially these type of, tools really helps, especially for the non-native English speakers, right? So especially for the non-native English speakers. And if you go to a country like Europe and all, each and every country has got their, they'll communicate with their own languages. They'll never, most of them they doesn't know English, right? So most of them they doesn't know English, but still the best out of best papers comes from them. How it is possible? By making use of these tools, right? So there is something called the summarization tools, right? So there is summary and resume. You need to summarize it, right? So you need to summarize it, right? So for example, you have something called Scholarcy, Resume, ChatGPT, Engorate. So what is this basically a summarization? You have hundreds of pages of thesis, but you need to generate an abstract for it, right? So you need to understand very crisply what exactly it is conveying. That is what is your abstract, right? So you just summarize it, right? So you just summarize it. It's as simple as reading your newspaper, right? So morning, what you do, you don't have any time. You need to rush to your office. So what you need, you just read, the headlines, right? So you need to read you'll read headlines, right? So can you make use of such tools in your phone, right? So for example, there is something called Google News, right? So there is something called Google News. Every minute it will get popped up, right? So every minute it will get popped up. Right. So, but it could be something advantage or it could also be something, disadvantage. Because as per the psychologists, it says that it's a disadvantage because you'll be knowing too much of information. Right. So you'll be knowing too much of information. But to the certain extent, you'll be abreasting that what is exactly happening. Why are you worried about Syrian war?
Yeah,
Do you want to worry or not?
you are.
It's debatable.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to worry really about the Syrian war or not?
No.
Right. So, do you want to really worry about Russian giving and shelter to the Assad Syrian president? Do you want to worry or not? It's a debatable. Some arguments there will be yes, it should be, it should not be. Right. So then, in such cases, right. So how do you really come out with some information that is required only for you, the news that is required only for you. For example, you are quite very much impressed with knowing only the sports news, right? So, can you fine tune it, right? So, only sports news. Other than sports news, nothing should pop up in your phone, right? So, it should keep on telling only the sports news, right? So, that is how actually these summarization tools works, and then Wordtune, Power Thesaurus. So these are all the vocabulary that are left out, like the dictionaries, right? So which can be used to be best extent. And there is something called time management and productivity tools. That is focus at will and homo focus, right? So it is basically used to create the environment and to conducive to concentrate. Right. So these tools can maintain focus, manage time effectively and ensure that writing progress steadily. Right. So it adds and also maps your progress towards the end requirements. Right. So it should be a timely management. Right. So it should be timely management and it should map to the end user requirement. For example, if you take a research topic today, by the 4 years down the line, it will become an outdated. Yes or no? It will become an outdated. Right. So then what are you expecting maybe at the end of the fourth year? Right. So that should be clearly thought out. Right. So how do you keep track maybe by using Homo focus, right? Maybe. So these are some of the best AI tools. This is the whole summary that I have given. Right. So content creation for marketing and sales, design tools. Right. So then you have something called transcription tools. Right. So video editing and creation tools. Right. So project management and time management. Right. So these are all some of the tools that are available, but definitely, you can make use of. Some of them will provide little flexibility to use without the payment,
Payment.
but some tools, right, so are also the commercial. Right. So if you found that is really giving a good, or supporting your research, maybe you can just go for the library and you can keep your recommendations. Right. So the last slide. Right. So since there is a word called ethical usage of the artificial intelligence. Right. So the first word is use AI for assistance, not for the replacement.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this I am telling by my experience because and I have seen AI has created a mess in many of their lives. Right. So in their many of their lives. Right. So please try to be little cautious, especially using the AI. Try to use the AI only for the assistance, but it should not be a replacement. And try to understand its limitations. Right. So unless otherwise, if you don't know the limitation of what the tool that you are using, right? So then fully depending on that particular tool, again will leads to a mess. And ensure ethical usage of the AI tools. Right. So for example, using a tools to generate or paraphrase your own article, right? So or something the tampering of the others articles. Don't do that, right? So ethics plays a very, very important. Always it is highly recommended the last statement. Right. So always it is recommended to go with the last statement, that is use the conventional and the traditional methods. Right. So try to combine the artificial intelligence. Right. So the name itself tells it's an artificial intelligence. Right. So with your traditional methods so that you can really achieve the best. Right. So this I stop. I am extremely sorry that I have taken another extra 10 minutes of time. Right. So since why these is questions are guaranteed in life, right? So because answers are not. Right. So the reason is It once again it contextual dependent and individual perception. Right. So you may ask a question, sir, that AI is doing everything. Why I should really struggle? Right. So that is, huh?
Sir, now most of us know traders that big corporations are using AI for market movement analysis and all. So they are exception. They are accepted. If a common person user it, that's good. That will become a problem.
Hmm.
So how to?
Sir, as such, it's a good question, but the simple answer is for this is see, especially the usage of software,
Mm.
right? So the usage of software and especially the regulatory laws for the usage of software is slowly coming to the country like India. Right. So because we enjoyed like anything, right? So copying others' work. When we were doing our research work and we were, working towards our research work, taking course of others, we enjoyed like anything. But now it is not possible because our laws are getting stringent. Days are not for right. So for each and everything there will be an break. Right. So that remains same. It cannot be tampered by anyone. Right. So either is the topmost person of the country or the last person of the country. The usage of software, right, so remains same. So such kind of regulatory laws are required, and slowly India is trying to push such kind of rules and regulations on the usage of tools and softwares. So that is why Neha Kakkar,
Got
right? So she got notice within a span of hours, right? So within a span of hours, just to disclosing her misleading because she is a popular figure, right? So and she has misled the other
traditional traders.
small players, right? So the other small players like customers, right? So you to prompting to use such kind of an AI. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, if you don't have any other questions, hope it was only my experience that I spoke, right? So nothing much that I discussed because more or less everything is already known to you, right? So everything was already known to you, but only thing is we should give a thought whenever we are trying to use tools, especially the AI tool, right? So in a proper sense, right? So with this, I extend my sincere thanks to each and everyone, right? So my seniors, super seniors are sitting here, right? So and my contemporaries are also here, and my colleagues are also here. My research scholars are here, right? So and the outside participants are also here, right? So thanks for patience listening. If anything is there, you can just drop me an email or you can come to my office. We can have a discussion like how to go about of using the tools and techniques. And especially, I thank and congratulate Basappa sir for creating such a wonderful platform and giving an opportunity. We request the library to be more proactive from now on. Right, so try to push as many as number of tools such that it makes lives easier rather than replacement. Right, so rather than replacement, it makes lives easier and will give a better quality and the outcome to the university in the coming days also. With this, thank you everyone for the patience.
We would like to thank Dr. Rupan and also our Deputy Minister J.K. Shetty for his wonderful and informative lecture. Thank you very much, sir. Please accept our locations.
Sorry,
The next session will start 2 o'clock. Already the already arrived. The no products can be have an NTS, we are in then comes. And then battery.
Mm.